That's big business. Hit 10, but that's big pimpin'. My potential, that's infinite. Pin game insane. Make hits like King Griffin, a 10th inning.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 67.
Yeah, 67.
Perfect. I nailed it. As always, I'm Sean. He's Dan. And Dan, you want to tell people what we got in store for him today?
Sure. Well, my object for today, I know it seems like recently, have you had an object? Have you not? I actually have another invisible object. I have a webcam now. I'm still figuring out what angle I like. So if it looks like I'm looking down on you, no, you guys are number one in my heart. I am not looking down on you. It's just a tall monitor. I'm trying to figure out the best angle. So we're working through that. What we have in store for them today, Sean, is the second base rank. It's the first best second base rankings. So we're going to get to you some real life rankings for these players. We'll grade them at the end of the season based off WAR. We're not one of those podcasts where we give you a top 10 and we're hush-hush about it. When we're wrong or right, we don't say anything about it after. We're going to be held accountable. So you'll get to see at the end of the season how we did based on, real life performance. So we take into factor defense. We all take into factor like clubhouse guys, like leadership, and obviously the offensive profile. Obviously, WAR doesn't take into account, leadership whatsoever. But me and Sean kind of factor that in. WAR is the all-encompassing stat or so that can help us grade at the end of the year. And I'll also give you a top 5 for fantasy as well. So if you're interested in that, I'll give that in the beginning for people who are interested in that. And I'll have a fun time here tonight, Sean. That's how I feel.
We will. I'm very much looking forward to it. And second base, I feel like an underrated sleeper position as far as talent goes. You don't really hear too many people talk about it. Normally it's first base, shortstop, third base. But I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah. Me as well. What is going? Oh, you're coming out of my headphones. I wonder why you're so quiet. I can't believe I hear you that well on my headphones. I got something for him, Sean. I was supposed to do this last episode. Before we start, I know since we graded on WAR this off season for last year, I want to give the Fangraphs Projected WAR top 10 for this year, just to give a base off. Maybe this would be the projected top 10, all 4. And that is Jose Altuve, Marcus Semien, Andres Jimenez, Jeff McNeil, Tommy Edman, Jazz Chisholm, Brandon Lau, Luis Arias, Gleyber Torres, and Ozzie Albies. Obviously, there's some question marks here. Jazz is now a center fielder, also an MLB The Show cover athlete, so congratulations to Jazz and his family.
Yeah.
It's a little bit too much Jazz for me, Sean. That's the last I'll mention.
I don't think he earned that. I don't think he's done enough to earn that, but that's just my opinion.
No, Sean, it's just the opinion of many. And, whatever. He's not going to make it on my list. I don't know if he's going to make it on Sean's. He's technically a center fielder now, so I'm ranking him as such. Some interesting names as well, though. A lot of bounce backs like Brandon Lau, Ozzie Albies, even Gleyber a little bit. And the one thing I'll say before we get into this, Sean, is fantasy. I'll tell you, is so much different than regular. My fantasy top 5 is I would advise you differently because at second base, it's a lot of people that are underrated right now because they're bouncing back from injuries or down years, like Lau or Polanco or Albies, those kind of cats. And there's a lot of guys with dual eligibility. That would be better than half of the second basemen on this list. Second base is a thin position. We're talking about the actual starters in the MLB. And like I said, I'll do it in the beginning, and then we'll get into our top 10. I'm going to give you quickly my top 5. I'm just going to name them. If you're in a fantasy league, these are your top 5 fantasy second basemen. Number 1, Marcus Semien. Guy's still got a lot of pop. That's what you need in a fantasy league, especially if you're even in a roto. He steals bases and he's got power, so he's got 2 categories for points leagues. Obviously, you got the homers and the stolen bases as well. Altuve, number 2. He kind of showed he could do it. Muncy, number 3. You won't see Muncy on my list because he's not playing second for the Dodgers anymore. It's more of a third base primary. You'll see him there. Ozzie Albies, number 4. Again, power speed combination. That's great for fantasy. Averaging on base a little bit lower, so maybe in points leagues a little bit lower for Ozzie. And at the number 5 spot, you got Jazz, who's a center fielder, and Tommy Edman, who's a shortstop. Kind of two players that at least didn't make it on my list because of their position, but would be good fantasy second baseman in the top 5 there, Sean. Anything you'd like to add about maybe the fantasy purposes of it? A guy that's a little sneaky, you think I didn't mention?
Not necessarily sneaky, but some of the positional, I guess, flexibility. Some of these guys, like Tommy Edman, I did rank as my second baseman, and he did make my top 10 list.
Yeah.
So if you guys see some of that tonight, some discrepancies, that's just because we happen to view players at different positions.
Yeah.
And we don't talk about our list prior because we want each other to be surprised fully on the pod, and it makes better content for you folks out there.
Absolutely does. I'm ready, Sean. You wanna give me your 10th? You wanna share that information with me in the fans?
I would love to. I'd be honored to, actually. My number 10 is a New York second baseman for a New York team that made the playoffs last year, and a New York team that plays in the Bronx. Gleyber Torres, my number 10 second baseman. Plays some second, some short. I imagine we'll be playing more second this year than short. That's why I have him ranked there. Number 10, the guy, he had a solid year last year. Really did. You wouldn't really know that from listening to a lot of Yankee fans because they would tell you he's terrible or he's great. A lot of people are split on him, at least from the outside looking in. So when I'm looking at his numbers, they actually were a little bit better than I had thought. The average wise 257. He seems to hit around there in his career. He's gotten up to close to 280 once, but nothing more than that. RBIs and home runs, he'll hit you 25 to 35 home runs on average a year. 76 RBIs last year, solid season. The K rate a little high at 22.6. Obviously, the defense is what is going to hurt the WAR. Not the best defender, but him being at second base should help that because at shortstop was a bit of a nightmare for him. And he is a solid offensive player, but I think the defense for me and the strikeouts and all that kind of mixed in together have bumped him all the way down to number 10 on my list. I expect him to have a season very similar to what he's had the past few years next year. So I don't think he'll be the 2019 Gleyber Torres where he knocked in 90 ribeye steaks and a 278 average, but I think he'll be probably in the 265 average range. Should I say 26 home runs and solid 78 RBIs.
Okay, Sean out here now giving projections. How do you like that, folks? How do you like it? Yeah, I'm in a similar camp with you. Gleyber just missed me. He was probably between 11 and 13. He was right in that range where you could have put him at 10. I put someone 10 and 9 that probably no one else will put ever 10 and 9. Again, I'm going with my nuts this year, Sean. I'm going with the nuts fully. So I think on a lot of lists, Gleyber should be around that 10, 11 range. Like you said, he's at this point, the 2019, it's a clear outlier. Everyone's 2019 was a clear outlier. Hit 30 whatever homers. He'll never do that again. He'll hit around 25 probably, and that'll be it. He'll hit 250, have a 320 on base, and some defense. He'll never go to short again. Thank God for his soul. He's not a shortstop. He's a second baseman. He's okay. He's a second baseman. But yeah. 10 is a fair spot. Getting into my number 10, Sean, you're gonna like this a lot. Shot, you don't even know who this guy. This is Shot. There's 20 minutes by in this podcast. I haven't said a name. There's a shot that happens here tonight, Sean.
With you, there's always a chance.
That's the kind of position we're in. Number 10 is Michael Massey. Okay, another Royal out there. Apparently, I think these Royals are sneaky. Michael Massey's a big guy I bought. If you guys watched my baseball card video last year, a guy that I had liked his minor league numbers. I was prospecting. I do have a couple autographs, so I'm invested in Michael Massey. This is an investment, so there's a little bit of bias here. I like the kid though. I do, and I think he's going to get a full season to run. He got a little taste of the majors last year. He hit 243 and 173 at bats. With a 3. Let's see what his on base was last year. 307. Didn't look great last year. 4 homers. The expected stats say a little bit different. They say his on base should have been closer to 330, which honestly isn't bad for the second base position. His average should be around 250, which again isn't bad for the second base position. It's pretty average. And he should have had 7 homers instead of 4, which kind of matches up a little better in the minors. If you take a look at this guy in the minor leagues, even including last year, he had about 40 games at AAA last year as well. Yeah, 33, 54 at AA, 80 total. He hit over 300 at both levels. He's basically hit over 300 at almost every level he's been at, with around a 350 on base. To me, he's in the majors, he's probably a 270 with a 330 on base guy, and he could probably hit between 16 to 20 homers. And at second base this year, with decent average defense, for me, that's enough. So I have him listed at 19 homers, a 265 average, 340 on base, 8 steals, and average defense. And for me, I want to get his name out there a little bit. And I think he deserves to be number 10. And I think he'll be top 10 in WAR next year. Michael Massey, little breakout season for him.
Yeah, he was not on my bingo card for top 10s. I'm aware of him, but I really don't know all that much. So I appreciate you enlightening me a little bit there. I like it out of you, and hopefully for your sake, he hits.
Let's hope he hits. Sean, you want to give me your number 9 out there?
My number 9 is another guy who really doesn't have a whole lot of major league experience, much like your number 10. My number 9 is Brendan Donovan of the St. Louis Cardinals.
Okay,
that's interesting because I have 2 Cardinals ranked at second this year. I have 2 Cardinals ranked second base, which could create a bit of an issue.
But, that's why I didn't rank Edmund, and I've had some issues with Donovan in the past, Sean. If you guys want to go back and watch the Award Qualms show, I've had some issues with this Brendan Donovan fella. Okay? I don't like the way people are, talking about him sometimes.
Yeah.
But continue. Please continue. Please. I'm sorry.
No, I agree. It's not a huge sample size we're going from here. But I like the skill set he brings. And the Cardinals because they seem to do such a good job of developing these players and turning them into very good major league players. So I guess I'm banking on that aspect. I also like that his strikeout rate is 15%, which is pretty low for a guy who was a rookie last year. Typically, you see strikeout percentages drop throughout the years as players kind of adjust. And he spent most of the year in the majors last year, 126 games. That's quite a bit. Slash a 281 average. Walk rate of 12.8%, which isn't, not too shabby. Doesn't have tons of pop, only 5 home runs in 126 games, 45 RBI. So he's not going to drive in tons of runs or get home runs, but he gets on base at a decent clip. Takes his walks and doesn't strike out too much. So I'm thinking that in my head that he's going to have a bit of a breakout year.
Sorry for any technical.
So I don't think.
Boy, guys, there's a little bit of snow in the air tonight.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. Also, there's a house right around here on fire, so maybe that's part of it. I don't know.
I'll do it.
I had to call the police or the fire department. Yes. Police wouldn't do much. Fire department would, put out a fire. Nonetheless, I digress. Brendan Donovan, he's not going to have a sophomore slump. He's going to build off what he did last year, and he's probably going to make it look like an idiot for picking him at second base. And frankly, the fact that I have another Cardinal further up the list also probably makes me look like an idiot. But I don't really care. I felt it, and I went with it, and yeah.
That's the 10th inning podcast, man. That's the 10th inning. Moving up for me, my number 9. Sean, I think I might have found the next Stephen Kwan. I think I might have found Stephen Kwan. I know you like Stephen Kwan. I know you think about drafting Stephen Kwan this year, and maybe you should draft this guy instead. Here's what I'm telling you. The guy's name is Ji Hwan Bae. Okay, that's Jajihwan Bae, spelt like you want it to be, Bay. And this guy came up at the end of last year for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Hit 333 with a 405 on base. Stole a couple bags, only in 10 games. BABIP was high, so what does that mean? Absolutely nothing. I will say a couple things. His sprint speed is 90th percentile, so that is real. So we do have a nice tracking on that. This man is blazing fast. He doesn't have power. He's very similar to, I think he's Kwan's profile with slightly less average, but more speed. Last year in the minors, he had 30 stolen bases in 108 games. He had 8 homers, very similar to what Kwan did in the majors last year, and he hit 289 with a 362 on base. Ji-Hwan Bae has pretty much hit 300, 460 to 470 at every stop. Had success at every single level. Again, this was at AAA last year, where he hit 290 with a 360 on base and 30 stolen bases. AAA is very, once you're past AA, you're pretty much there, and AAA is very compatible to the MLB. Obviously, we see guys that come up and are 4A players, they say, like Kelnick and some of the guys who just can't translate. But I think a profile like this, where the strikeout rate is also so low, we're talking 80 strikeouts in 108 games. I think it's like 16% for him. I really like the look of Ji-Hwan Bae, and he wasn't overpowered in his first 10 games in the majors. Also, the Pirates' second base position is kind of in flux. I forget who they have projected as their second baseman, but it's who is it? I need to look this up now because Sean, you know how we feel about the fans and the whole thing. It's Rodolfo Castro, who struggled for multiple years now. His prospect pedigree is honestly less than Ji-Hwan Bae. And there's nothing in his prospect profile that shows to me that he's going to be more successful at the major leagues. They're both the same age, and Ji-Hwan has already broke the majors. So I think it's my opinion that regardless of Castro having the supposed job right now, Ji-Hwan will win the job out of spring training. I think he's going to get a full year. I wouldn't rank him if I didn't think he's going to get a full year. And I think he's going to really surprise some people, maybe even push for the rookie of the year. And Sean, I'm also invested in Ji-Hwan Bae. So take your investment. This is not investment advice. Okay. Do your own research and due diligence. But big fan of the fellow.
I only know about him because you had mentioned him the other night when we were bowling. Folks, it was just Dan's birthday, so leave a happy birthday in the comments. He's 21 years old now.
That's right.
But yeah, no, I was not aware of him prior to you telling me about him. But that is very on brand. Frankly, I think if you were a GM of a Major League Baseball team, the team on the field might suck, but you would just be telling everybody how good your prospects are.
Oh yeah.
And then when your prospects reach some age, you probably would trade them away and get more prospects.
Oh,
just be like the prospects.
Yeah.
Like the Marlins almost.
Once you're over like that 21, 22 age, Sean, it's like, honestly, it's not worth it for me anymore.
Yeah.
It's not.
They're too old.
Yeah. Again, please don't clip that. Sean, who is your number 8 second baseman this year?
My number 8 second baseman is someone I believe to be near and dear to you, depending on what your allegiance lies. Gavin Lux. For the LA Dodgers, he really has not put it together yet. And that may be more on him or the Dodgers, probably more the Dodgers and Dave Roberts. You would know far better than I would, but he's played many positions other than second base throughout the years. He's been in the league for now really 2 full seasons. He had cups of coffee in 2019 and 20. But 2021 and 2022, he's played over 100 games. The average is a little low. I will say that 242, I believe, was his rookie year, and 276 was last year. So he bumped it up a little bit. I'd like to see that get a little higher. However, he's a solid defender. A 3 WAR last year, which for the second baseman is, I'm not sure. What was that?
That was sneaky, the 3 WAR he had.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that's top 10, maybe just outside top 10 in WAR for second base. He's got a little bit of some speed to him. Only maybe not 7 stolen bases. I thought he had a little more, to be honest with you. Not a ton of pop. Strikeout percentage a little bit high at 20%, but that has dropped a little bit over the years. And walks at about 10% as well. I'm banking on the fact that he's finally going to hit his stride with the Dodgers and finally be able to just stay at second base. Um, not get moved around. But Dave, then again, is the manager of the Dodgers, for better or worse. So that probably won't be the case. But it seems like the Dodgers are gonna be more patient with some of their young players this year. They didn't really make any big free agent signings aside from JD Martinez, and I think that
Sorry, yeah.
he's gonna benefit from that patience. Because he has all the skill sets. He was a top 100 prospect at one point, and I'm not sure what number, but he was pretty highly touted, and I think he's matured a little bit because I know he had some growing pains. But I expect for him to eventually break out, and this season would be that breakout year.
Sean, I don't disagree with you. And the metrics kind of like him, like last year with the 3 WAR and everything. One thing I will say, I'm going to dishearten you a little bit. Your heart will be dissed. He's not going to play second base this year.
No?
Dave's just not going to let him. He's going to play short. That is why they let Trey leave. They let Trey leave, and we didn't sign his shortstop. So right now,
he's going to play second.
Second base is either going to be Chris Taylor or a minor leaguer, maybe like a Michael Bush kind of guy come up situation. You never know, Mookie Betts. You know what we do, Sean. Second base is going to be a revolving door. Probably Chris Taylor. I think Chris is slotted there right now. And I'm pretty sure Gavin's slotted. Don't get me wrong. Gavin will get 50 games at second base this year, 50 in center field. Gavin played a lot of center field last year. So you got to pick one guy at the Dodgers to start at second base, Sean. So there's nothing wrong with you putting him there. I'm going to rate Gavin as a shortstop just because I think that's what he's going to play mostly this year, because he's the only one that I can imagine us letting play short. Listen, Muncy will be out at short, okay, day one. Muncy will be out there at shortstop, maybe even Freddie. But he probably won't make my top 10 this year. I'm happy you ranked him at second base because he wouldn't make either of our top 10s at short. So I'm glad Gavin Lux is getting at least a little bit of love today. That makes me happy, Sean. So thank you.
I'm glad you're happy.
My number 8 is a guy who really didn't play a lot of second base last year, played a lot of first, but is now traded to the Miami Marlins, which bumped out their current second baseman, Jazz Chisholm, who's now playing center. And Luis Arraez, the first baseman for the Twins, is now playing second base for the Marlins. As we said, there's a lot of positional flexibility here at second base. We might have a lot of different names. I'll tell you one thing about Luis Arraez, Sean. It's the ball. There's really, I'm a huge chubby cheeks too. If you ever want to smile at a guy, look at a picture of Luis Arraez. Adorable. 10 out of 10 on the QT scale for me. Man hits, expected batting average through every season. It's 287, 310, 295, 288. The shift is gone. He struck out at a 7% clip last year. I think that's best in baseball. Walked at an 8.3% clip. Somehow I'd like him to get that up to 10%, but he really doesn't have to when you're walking less than it already. The guy's going to hit 300. He's going to hit 310. It's just what he's going to do. There's really nothing you can do about it, unfortunately. 7 homers, though. He's going to hit the same or less homers there in Miami. It's not as favorable a ballpark as Minnesota. So 7 homers, 310 average, 365 on base, 5 stolen bases. And the defense is not great. So it is what it is. By the way, I don't think I gave you my projections for Ji-Hwan Bae, and I just can't. I cannot be that guy, Sean. My Ji-Hwan Bae projections: 8 home runs, 275 average, 340 on base, and 28 stolen bases for Ji-Hwan Bae. So watch out for that. There you go. That's what you got for me. Luis Arraez, number 8. Guy hits.
I love that out of you. I love that. My number 7, another guy near and dear to your heart, would be ranked higher had he played more last year and showed better flashes when he did play. Ozzie Albies. This is a guy who burst on the scene back in, I think, 2018, has dealt with some injuries throughout the years. Most notably what happened last year and what he got back from an injury, I don't remember what, and then proceeded to break his foot, I think, in the first at-bat back or first game back or shortly after coming back. So some bad luck. If you look at his numbers, he has the production he produces at a very high rate. You got a second baseman knocking in more than 100 runs a year. That's pretty good. And he's hitting over 20 home runs, 20 to 30 home runs so far in his career. The knock on him is his defense isn't the best. And he also has a very high chase rate, which results in a high strikeout percentage, which has dropped a bit since coming into the league, but still remains a little high. Also, he's a switch hitter, and he's a much better hitter.
He's just stop
Yeah.
switch hitting.
He's a much better lefty hitter, right? Lefty? Just want to make sure. Yeah, okay, thanks. He has a little more pop, I think, from the right side. Like if you look at his at bats, but his average is far, far lower from the right than his left. So as Dan just said, he really should consider dropping that because it kills his numbers. And really, for the amount of times you face a lefty, it really becomes not worth it if you're not producing. So I digress from there. I think he's going to have a solid year this year. I assume that I'm probably ranking him a little too low based off history. But after the year he put up last year, I'm a little bit concerned. And I feel like he is due for a bit of a regression just because how well he has done. But that may just be my feeling, and I may be way off. But Ozzie Albies my number 7.
Yeah, Sean, I like your face, Sean. I think that's a good rank.
Thank you. I like your face too.
Thank you. My number 7, a guy that I've been down on very much so in the past. The Matt Olson template shown here. Player profile. We're talking a guy hits a lot of homers, strikes out a lot. That's pretty much it. This guy doesn't even play good defense, so it's kind of interesting. But it's Brandon Lau, as you know. It's white guys hit homers and strike out on Tampa and Oakland they're just not my style. But in a year where everyone's down on him, somehow I'm finally somewhat up. He was riddled with injuries last year, but he should be in a decent lineup with a lot of guys to get on base. Yandy is really a great on base guy now. Harold Ramirez is a cute guy. Rosarena, he'll be right in that mix. In top 5 bats. You got to hope that Franco comes up, high on base guy. You can hit that lineup as well. And the position got significantly worse, it seems like, at least for me, with a lot of these guys leaving. Like I didn't rank Jazz and Edmund and Muncy and a lot of these guys that left the position, as well as other guys that got worse, like quote unquote Ozzy because he's coming off of injury, and Polanco had a down year, and even Simeon had somewhat a down year. I mean, at this point, he's just number 7. 29 homers, 240 average, 330 on base, 5 stolen bases. He's not going to play good defense, but he probably has the most power at the position still, and he hits for a high enough average and on base where you can kind of handle the bad defense and still be a top 10 second baseman.
I think I have a similar assessment to him as you do. He did not crack my top 10 list. He's not necessarily a player I love, and I think you kind of expressed that as well. But yeah, no, I like that pick out of you. What are we up to, number 6 right now? Number 6. Okay, another guy who I don't necessarily love, nor I don't think you do either. Jake Cronenworth. He's got a lot of pop. Or sorry, not a lot. A solid amount of pop. Drives and runs, but has a very high strikeout rate at 20% and an average 239 last year, which is a bit of a dip from the year before. So I think maybe come up a little bit. But sneakily has a WAR of 4.1. The guy doesn't really get talked about all that much, especially in that loaded lineup the Padres have. You don't really hear Jake Cronenworth mentioned. So I honestly was not expecting him to be this high up in my rankings at number 6. Lo and behold, he is. And I think he's only going to improve just based off how stacked that lineup is. He is going to have protection. I mean, everybody in the lineup can have protection. There really is no one left out to dry. So I think just by the nature of that, he is going to improve and up that average a little bit. I think 239 last year was a bit low. I'm thinking maybe more 250. 250 with that production you'll take that every day and twice on Sunday if you're the San Diego Padres. So Jake Cronenworth, number 6 for me.
I like it. I like it. Sean, I got bad news. I got some bad news.
It's not playing second.
I don't think the guy's gonna play second base. Ha-Sung Kim, Sean. You gotta think about this Ha-Sung Kim guy.
He can't hit though.
He can't hit. He great fielder. I think Cronenworth's gonna play a lot of first this year. That's where they have him slated. Right now, listen, when I did second base rankings, I had this fear with every guy. I'm like, does this guy play second base? And I just look up, I think it's Roto Baller. I just look up projected lineup for X team. Roto Baller is the first one that comes up. Shout out to you. And every second baseman I looked up, they weren't playing second. They said, "Oh no, this guy plays center field. This guy plays first base."
So basically, my entire list is going to be non-second basemen in second base.
But they all will have second base eligibility, guys. Okay, they're all gonna have second base eligibility, so it's not an issue. But yeah, no, Cronenworth. I don't know. I'm kind of down on Cronenworth this year. He's rubbed me the wrong way. Everything just like the on base has kind of been lower, but he got that WAR. He did get the 4.1 WAR in a down season, so it makes you wonder, what is he doing? I don't know. There's nothing about Cronenworth's profile that excites me.
Yeah.
However, he's gotten it done. And there's a lot of guys like that, so I'm wrong a lot. So I don't think it's a bad ranking. There's just something about him, Sean. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, no, I feel that.
My number 6, Jorge Polanco. The underlying numbers suggest a bounce back seems like pretty likely. He still hit the ball pretty hard last year. His expected numbers were pretty much where his usual numbers are. It seems like this position is just riddled with guys that had down years due to injury last year. Again, like Lau from number 7, he played 60 games and we shitting him, but he was like injured the whole time. So like, was that really Brandon Lau? Polanco played, I think, less than 100 games or right around there and was injured the whole time. So, and also was unlucky. So is that really him? Did they get a lot worse, or did just a lot of second basemen have injury-riddled seasons? Ozzy Albies, what did he play? 60 games, but he was injured the whole time. So is that really him? You know, a lot of these guys have the same story. Polanco, I'm projecting for 26 homers, a 250 average, 350 on base. He does get on base a good amount. 5 stolen bases, and he's shit on defense. The one thing you'll see with my top 5, Sean, for my defense and leadership grades, you know how I do it. For just to give the fans at home an understanding, 86 to 100th percentile is a 1 grade. 75 to 86 is a 2. Everything else is a 3, 4, or 5. No one has lower than a 2 for defense, and no one has lower than a 3 for leadership in my top 5. So that really did factor in a lot to my second base, because a lot of the offensive profiles are pretty similar. But a lot of these top 5 guys they play the position well. So Polanco is my last bad defender on the list.
Okay. He did not make my list.
Sure.
He's another guy.
He should also miss your list. I'm not even shocked at that. You know, he had a down year.
Yeah. I think I just have a little trouble ranking anybody from the Twins in a top 10 because they always, like you said, get injured. And the Twins just regularly underperform.
Yeah.
So I think that maybe just the stench of the Twins kind of turned me off from him. So I'm sorry, people from Minnesota. Your football team had a good regular season.
Oh, wow. Sean, that wasn't a nice double down there, Sean. That was not a nice double down right there. Do appreciate it, though.
Yeah, Danny Dimes.
Yesterday was tough. It was the first Sunday we had where, like, why did I get out of bed, man? I didn't have a reason to get out of bed.
And then the Eagles had to win, so that was awful.
You call that winning, Sean? I call that, I don't even know. That was disturbing.
Yeah. You really want to hear my number 5, Dan?
Sure. Do you think I don't want to hear your number 5?
I'm not feeling too happy about it. I'm really not.
I'm happy about it.
Okay. All right. Tommy Edmonds, my number 5. The issue is I have 2 Cardinals in my top 10, and I didn't know how to handle it, and I wanted to include both of them, so I did. As we discussed, Tommy Edmonds probably moving to short. Is that what you were saying?
So yeah.
So this probably won't age well for me, but let me just give you a rundown here. Um, the guy had a 5.6 WAR last year, so that WAR alone made him as high on the list as he is. And we're playing to win here, and I was hoping that he would duplicate that. It's quite a jump from his WAR the previous year in 21. He had a 2.8 WAR then, so that is quite a jump. As far as offensive numbers go, he hits for 260 average or so. K rate is 17%, but he's got some speed. Had 32 stolen bases last year, which is always a nice thing to have. As you see this year, the bases are bigger. There's gonna be some limited pickoff attempts, which I hate. It's god awful, and no more shifts. So I think that offense is going to go up, and stolen bases is going to go up as a result because of all this. So I'm banking on his numbers to improve. And the Cardinals, much like I think the Twins have a nasty stench around them, the Cardinals seem to have roses and fresh meadow smells. The Cardinals have not won a World Series in I think about 10 years now, but they seem to just always do things the right way. I don't know if maybe it's just us growing up and the Cardinals always being good, but I seem to have utmost faith and confidence in them as an organization to do the best by their players and to get them to perform.
I love it. I think that's probably where I would have had him if I ranked him. So I think that's a really fair ranking. My number 5, a shortstop, is a shortstop that plays in New York. Shortstop that made the playoffs last year.
Do you mean second base?
My Sean, at this point they're all shortstops. So my second baseman is a guy that made the playoffs in New York. He's actually my favorite second baseman in New York. And as history tells us, Sean, my favorite second baseman in New York will always be somehow on the Mets. It's the only position on the Mets I've always liked. No matter what the Mets have, I like their goddamn second baseman. And that's Jeff McNeil, the flying squirrel out there. Sean, I've been writing notes. I have a little notes section for all these guys that I help. You know what my notes section for Jeff McNeil says, Sean?
Baseball player?
Ball player. That's it, man. It says ball player. What else? Do you need to know anything else about Jeff McNeil?
He can play any position.
The guy's a ball player. He does everything. He's a ball player. He plays ball. That's it, Sean. That's all the man does. He's not out there. He's not a slugger. I'm not saying he's a slugger. Ball player. 10 homers, 295 average, 355 on base, 5 steals. He's got a number 1 defense grade, number 2 for leadership. Honestly, you can give him a number 1 leadership. The only reason he's not number 1 leader is he's not like, I feel like he's not as much of a leader as he is like, that's the guy you want on your team going 150% every time. He might not be as much as like a leader figure to other guys, but more so as like the team in general. But Jeff McNeil is a ball player. He plays phenomenal defense, especially now that he has a home at second base. He can really work on that crafting. He was great last year. He's only going to hit probably 10 bombs, but 295, 355. Talking about batting champ here, Sean. Talking about batting champ. Second on this episode, which is interesting. Second base ship position. Both batting champions come from second base last year. What do you got to say about that?
I got to say, put some respect on his name. And frankly, definitely. I thought you were going to rank him a little higher. I'm a little taken aback by that. I got to be honest with you. Number 5. I hope Jeffrey watches this, take a little anger out on Dan, and get into that top 4 next year.
He was like, Jeff could have been 2. There's like very close between the next couple guys. Very, very close.
Yeah. I like that though. I really do. Everything you said, I echo, and I will talk about him again a little bit. We're up to number 4 here, and my number 4 is none other than Marcus Semien. I
like it.
I'm feeling you ranked him a lot higher than I did, but and that's not a knock against him. Frankly, we were making jokes last year about how poorly he was doing in the first half. You look at his final year-end totals, not too shabby considering how he started. He finished with a 248 average, which you say is, not great, but frankly, that's pretty much around his major league average over his career. He's like 255 hitter. You're not all that far off. So he's never been a super high average guy aside from 2019 with Oakland where he hit 285. So that's what you're gonna get out of him. Had 26 home runs and 83 RBIs. Again, these numbers don't look great, but when you consider how he started the year, I think he didn't have a home run until June. I could be wrong with that.
Yeah, the
So
first
factor
2 months were brutal. April and May, but after that, he was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, the fact he finished with 26 home runs is just insane. Also, the strikeout rate he had last year was the second lowest of his career at 16.6%, which is a major improvement from 20%. That's a 4%, over 4% decrease, which is quite a bit when I consider it. Plays solid defense, had a WAR of 4.2 last year, so among the best in that department. And I think he's kind of figured out how to, deal with the pressure of that contract. And the Texas Rangers are looking up, and I think that he's a huge key to their lineup, and he has everything going in his favor.
Yeah, I don't disagree. You saying what you said right now actually, like, you got me hype on Marcus Semien. I wish I ranked him higher than I did. I didn't rank him much further away where you did, to be honest with you. I might even speak about it now. But I agree. That's all I got to say. My next guy, a guy you already spoke about, Sean, it's Ozzie Albies. I have him at 4. This was a guy a couple years ago. I wouldn't say consensus number 1 second baseman, but he was in the conversation for the number 1 second base job probably prior to the injury last year. I'm basically giving him the same projection as I did after his 2021 season, though. I'm going to decrease some numbers a little bit, but at the end of the day, I'm really not taking much of what he did last year into account. I mean, he had injury-riddled season. The guy's, 26 still? Like, he's never done anything other than be good his whole career. He's a good ball player. 24 homers, 260 average. Unless he starts hitting exclusively from the one side, I don't think his average is going to go up. Issue with Ozzie, where he can't rank anymore, it's the 315 on base. He just does not walk. He does not get on base, and he strikes out. And for me, listen, I know it's crazy that I even put Jeff McNeil under him. It's just that he hits a good amount more home runs, and he steals more bases. And Ozzie plays good defense too. Ozzie's another one of those guys that plays a really solid defense. Kind of does it all. Homers, stolen base, okay average. It's just the on base is low, and he plays good defense. But I believe in Ozzie. So number 4 second baseman for me.
Okay. And I always thought he was not the best defender because I'd mentioned that earlier, but I know he has worked on it. I hadn't looked at the defensive metrics. But the fact you're saying he's a decent defender, I believe that quite a bit because you
can't work with Ron Washington and not be a good defender.
Yeah, that is true. He's done a lot of work with him because I know at first he was putrid at second base.
The last, I think, since 2020, I was looking at it. He's been above average. He's really good in his short stint last year.
Okay. All right. Well, I walked back my statement a little bit then. Sorry, Ozzie, to you and your closest friends and family. Number 3, right? Number 3. Now this guy, if you would have told me he was number 3 in the rankings this time last year, I would have laughed at you a little bit. Maybe not laughed, but I would have been a little surprised. None other ex-New York second baseman / shortstop, Andres Jimenez. Centerpiece of that Francisco Lindor trade, and the trade so far that both teams have seemed to win, if that's possible. Now, I don't want to say Jimenez was necessarily surprised. He was a top 100 prospect with the Mets. I think he reached as high as top 10. Came up with the Mets during that 2020 COVID year and did fine. Only had 49 games, but hit for 263 average, showed a nice, defensive prowess, and looked good. Now, his first year with Cleveland, he only played in about 70 games, 218 average. Really, his metrics were not all that great. Did have 11 stolen bases, though, which was quite a bit. Last year, however, had a breakout year, and the average bumped way up, 297. He's always been an average guy in the minors, so that really isn't a shock. But what was a little bit of a surprise, 17 home runs, which for a guy like him was never much of a power hitter in the minors. 17 home runs isn't a ton, but for a guy of his stature who has the speed and skill set he has, 17 home runs you'll take any day. So that was key. And he also drove in 69 RBIs, which is very nice and more than I would have thought. And he really had a breakout year, and his WAR was beautiful, 6.1 WAR. The guy is an outstanding defender, is probably going to win multiple Gold Gloves in the future going forward, and is really kind of, I think, going to become the centerpiece, cornerstone of that Guardians team, along with Jose Ramirez. So I'm pretty high on him. I wish he was still in the Mets, but at the same time, I like Lindor, so I want to see him succeed, and he has everything necessary to do that and build off what he did last year.
Yeah, I like him, and as I'll talk about him a little bit later, I would, even when going to do this list, I was like, well, this was a fluke. He's going to probably be 8 for me. You know, the numbers aren't going to back it up. And not that they necessarily, we'll talk about it, but I mean, higher than I thought it would be on my list for sure. My number 3 guy I said, isn't going to be too far away from you. You have him 4, I got him 3. That's Marcus Semien. I think he was number 1 for me last year. The only reason I have him at number 3, I didn't take too much stock into the slow start to the year. His background numbers didn't look great. Like they just didn't look good. He's 11th percentile in average exit velocity last year, which is really bad. The one thing he definitely showed last year that he could do is that, well, 2 things. One, it doesn't matter what the Statcast numbers say. He's one of those guys that deny the Statcast numbers. He has power, and he gets to it regardless of his average exit velocity. And 2, that he can really defend. He had a lot of defensive issues in the past, especially at shortstop. But he was one of the top 2 defenders at second base last year. It was him and Jimenez. I mean, like, I forget who won the Gold Glove. Did Semien win the Gold Glove?
No, I think Jimenez won it.
Jimenez won. Semien might have won last year actually too.
Yeah.
I think Semien has a Gold Glove, but the last couple of years he has really shown that, like, when he has a home now, he can defend. And you see it a lot from former shortstops. Once they move over, it's like, you're a bad shortstop, you're a great second baseman. I have him for 26 homers, a 245 average, 315 on base, and 20 stolen bases. Very similar to what he did this year. He had 26 and 22 as far as homers and stolen bases. You would say, why don't you think he's going to get back to the 30 homer threshold? If he starts the first 2 months hot, the way he ended, he would be well over these numbers. I think he's streaky. I think he's going to have a couple months stretch this year and every year where he kind of goes cold. But I think he's going to get close to that 26 to 30 mark. He's going to hit the 245, like you said. The only thing with him and Ozzy, they're in the same boat where the 315 on base, he doesn't walk enough. He needs to walk more to get to this top 2 range for me. But the 20 stolen bases and elite defense with power, I mean, other than walking enough, Semien has the whole package. Good-looking fellow, too. So Semien's my number 3 second baseman.
No, I think we feel very similar about him. And he finally does have a home because he always kind of bounced around a bit. He was with Oakland, and that's never. Yeah. Oakland is never a secure location because you're going to get traded or what have you. Goes to Toronto for 1 or 2 years.
1 year, I think, yeah.
And now he's got a home at both positional wise and team wise. So I think that he's just going to have a bounce back year, which is crazy to say because he really didn't have that bad of a year last year.
Right.
So, all right, my number 2, none other than Jeffrey McNeil.
I like it.
I love Jeff McNeil. I'm probably very, very biased. Actually, I am very, very biased. Not even probably. Competitor, man. Every time he gets out, it looks like he's going to murder somebody, which is both good and bad. But that is competitiveness. He's got a competitor in him, and he hates to lose. Plays an amazing position wherever he plays. He's made great plays in the outfield, second base. Gives 110%. The guy has no regard for his body. And he really had a bounce back year last year because in 2019 he had a breakout year. Hit 318. 75 RBIs, 23 home runs. The interesting thing with that was the first half of the year that year, he was hitting like 330 and only had like 6 home runs. Second half of the year, he hit like 270, but had like, I don't know how many, 20-something home runs or whatever it ended up being, a lot more home runs. So he focused on power in the second half as opposed to average, which was the opposite of the first half. Fast forward to 2021, nothing was working. He 251. He just looked like not at all the player he was. Everybody kind of knew he was going to bounce back. He was probably one of the easiest bounce back picks you could have made last year. And boy, did he bounce back, won batting title, and should be at second base moving forward. And I think that he's really just going to keep getting better, and has a nice new 4-year contract for $50 million. I think his agent should get fired. Actually, it's 4 years, $50 million with a club option for the 5th year. That would make it like $47 million. So, or sorry, $57 million. Sorry, I didn't knock that down.
Like,
still, nonetheless,
pay us $3 million to come play for us this year.
Nonetheless, that's the Braves. The Braves make you donate $1 million to the foundation when you sign a contract with them. But his agent really just did not do anything for him. Or maybe McNeil really wanted a hometown discount. I don't know. But nonetheless, I'm excited to see him in the blue and orange for the next most likely 5 years.
As you should be. Muncy had a similar situation with the Dodgers where he took a not too big of a deal. So I think we got some fun second basemen for our teams at
Yes.
cheap. Sean, I got to tell you, my number 2 is shocking, and it's Andres Jimenez. I don't even love that I'm saying this to you, but like you said, we're here to win. The man had crazy WAR last year. You look at the background numbers. Did they back up him doing exactly what he did last year again? No. But it's not crazy far off. I don't think he's going to hit 297, but if he hits 270, well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with hitting 270. And at the end of the day, he's probably going to be the best defensive second baseman in baseball next year. I have him projected at 15 home runs, a 270 average, so coming down on both fronts, a 350 on base, and let's not forget the man still has 22 steals coming next year. You know, if you're hitting 15 or more homers, stealing 20 or more bags, and your average and on base is 270, 350 with the best defense in baseball, there's not one stat I just read that's below average. Everything is average or above average or elite in his profile, even with taking a step down, which is why you saw the WAR so high, even when you're saying, well, he's only hitting 17 bombs last year. Yeah, but he does everything good or better than good. And sometimes that's better than like having Simeon where he hits homers and steals bases, but he can't get on base or hit for average. You know, like Jimenez does every single thing well. And in a position where there's not a lot of all-stars, he's the second best second baseman in baseball for me, which is pretty crazy for me to say.
He's a starter.
He's a starter.
Yeah. No, he kind of fits that Guardians team. It's guys like Steven Kwan, Andres Jimenez, obviously, and then Jose Ramirez. A lot of guys that were kind of really have a chip on their shoulder. None of those guys were picked to really succeed the way they were. Obviously, Jimenez was a top prospect, but kind of got traded and was really kind of down in the doldrums. So those are guys that make that team have some character, and they're going to be, good next year. I don't know if they'll win the division, but they'll be good. But Jimenez, I think that he's got quite a future ahead of him, and he's still very young. I think he's 23 years old. I could be off on that, but he was signed very young.
24. That's a young buck still, though, Sean.
Yeah, he got signed, I think it was 16 from somewhere in Latin America. So he's going to be around for a while. So anyway, my number 1, frankly,
we can do it again if you want, because we're I mean, it seems like we're in the same situation we were last week, and I hate to be in this situation. I like when we have, but I'll let you talk first about them. But would you like to do the whole American Idol reveal the golden ticket situation here?
Sure.
3, 2, 1.
Jose Altuve.
Yeah, no one's excited. Freddie Freeman was an exciting time.
Yeah, like Freddie Freeman. Jose Altuve.
This is tough. This is tough.
As much as we don't want to rank him 1, you can't not do it.
It is.
Every time we think he's going to fall off or decline, he proves us wrong. I mean, in 2020, he was brutal. 219 average. Looked like he was lost up there. 18 RBIs in 48 games. Just looking at those numbers is just astonishing. But this year bounced back 300 average. I mean, 57 RBIs, 103 runs. That is quite a bit. The power is still there. He had 28 home runs. I mean, all of his numbers are impressive. 6.6 WAR. He's on a loaded team. He's only 32. He still has years of his prime left. And he's not a guy who necessarily relies solely on speed. He did have 18 bags last year, but he should age pretty well. He's a small guy, so typically smaller athletes and people in general don't have certain ailments that big guys like Aaron Judge or other players of that stature have. So he should be doing just fine. And there's no signs of decline, really. The Astros are really just a juggernaut. He's got protection in that lineup. And I hate to say it, we're looking at a future surefire Hall of Famer. We really are.
Unless I don't. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how the writers think about every Astro with the whole cheating thing. It seems like no one gave a shit about Beltran. So
Beltran did not. Beltran didn't get a lot of votes. Beltran is going to be a Hall of Famer. He deserves to be one, but I think Beltran's honestly gotten it the worst out of anybody on that team, which is ironic because he didn't even play really. Yeah. So
fair. Well, yeah. I mean, the one thing I'll say about Jose is that the StatCast numbers don't really apply to Altuve. It's just one of those guys because 6th percentile in average exit velocity, although 5 percentile in hard hit. Everything else looked pretty good though. Expected batting average of 269. Last 4 years, 269, 262, 230, 268. So at a certain point, I have to look at that and say, well, they're wrong. Okay, they're just not understanding. He's a good hitter. There's a difference. Like, there's athletes and then there's ball players. Jeff McNeil's average exit velocity is shit on a stick. Okay, but Jeff McNeil's a hitter. He's a ball player. He doesn't need to hit the ball hard to get hits. He gets hits. Like, it's an art. To get a hit is an art. Altuve doesn't need to hit the ball hard to get a hit. He needs to hit it where he needs to hit it. You know what I mean? Some guys are just athletic freaks. They need to hit the ball hard and hope it goes where they want it to go, and they hit it so hard that no one catches it. So looking at those kind of StatCat metrics for someone like a professional like Altuve's, I shouldn't have done it last year. It was stupid. As these new metrics come out, you kind of learn what to really look at and what to not. And I'm starting to learn that. And for a guy like Altuve, I should just shut the fuck up and go home. You know what I mean? He even got back to stealing bases last year, which he hadn't done in 2 years. It was almost like a fuck you to me. It felt like stole 18 out of nowhere. He hadn't stole bases in a couple of years. Sprint speed's at 70%. Do you need to be fast to steal bases? No, you have to be a good base stealer. That's the whole thing with Altuve. Is like he's just a ball player. I hate to put him in the ball player category, but man's a ball player with power. You know, and that's a tough look. 26 homers I'm projecting, 285 average. I'm still having him coming down from his numbers. I can't handle it. 355 on base, 14 stolen bases. He plays decent defense. He's probably one of the better leaders at the position. He's the best second baseman in baseball. Okay. But but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Some shout outs. I'm not going to read stats or anything, but I just want to say 5 names out there if you don't mind. These guys are real close. We're okay on time right now. Ha-Seong Kim, I think the best second baseman defensively in the National League. He was pretty close to making my list just because of defense. Ketel Marte, hopefully he has a bounce back. You know, Brandon Drury, we'll see. Cincinnati really inflated his stats. It was pretty obvious when he went to San Diego. I think we all need to see a little bit more than half a season of good Brandon Drury to buy his top 10. But we'll see this year. And where is he? Where is he now? LA. Oh fuck, he's fucked. Never mind. Brandon Drury, he's not. He's gonna get hurt or something. It's not gonna work there. The Angels, of course. I mean, nothing works out over there. He'll probably kill himself. No, I'm sorry. That's an awful joke. But it's tough.
Tyler Skaggs.
It's tough out there in LA. Brendan Rodgers. Had a little bit of an okay season, plays decent defense, does everything all right. Gleyber Torres, we already mentioned. And the other guy I want to talk about for a quarter second is Thairo Estrada, former Yankees prospect. Watched him hit a homer. Really like Thairo Estrada. Plays really decent defense. Might steal 20 bags this year and hit 250. You know, he's a fun little player. There's a couple good bright spots about him. And then some prospects to note. Michael Busch from the Dodgers. I'll say this, if he ever got the second base, he's 25. He's been hitting him at AAA in the minors for like 2 years and being great at it. If they, for some reason, want to call up a good prospect of theirs, I wouldn't be shocked if he won Rookie of the Year and made it on the top 10 WAR list. I just can't project that the Dodgers will do something good for themselves organizationally. I won't put my name on it. And Connor Norby of the Baltimore Orioles. They have Gunnar. They have a lot of other pieces. If for some reason Connor Norby comes up or breaks camp, he's a guy you can watch as well. Also have a Connor Norby card that I just bought too. So he's an investment. There he is, guys. I don't feel like him. There's Connor. Oh, there he is.
It's a nice card.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Anything to note, Sean, before I break out this pick of any?
Other than I had Jazz Chisholm at second base. Now he's a center fielder, so you'll see him in my center field rankings. And I too hope Ketel Marte bounces back. We have a good Marte Parte, and I like Ketel Marte quite a bit. Stop.
Interesting. I'm surprised we haven't had the same card twice. I don't know why.
Well, we might now.
Have we had Chuck Finley?
I don't think so.
Well, Chuck Finley's a name I know. Okay, this is good for me. He had to have had a decent career because I know the name. At their best MLB stat breakdown, in the daytime, we're talking daytime stats in 1988. ERA was 2.25. At night, 5.5. Unfortunately, Chuck, you play most of the games at night, so that's not a great situation. At home, 5.23. On the road, 4.2. So you had to get Chuck Finley at a neutral site in the daytime to see a good performance out of it in 1988. Unfortunately, I don't think he had many of those. But if you ever saw him out there, neutral site, middle of the day, sun beating down, you know Chuck Finley was going to come at you. But tell me did he have a good career?
17-year career.
Okay. Was this his rookie year?
1986 was his rookie year.
Okay.
He had 200 career wins. 200 and 173 was his record, and a career ERA of 3.85. Four-time All-Star.
All right. Chuck.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Did he ever win a Cy Young or anything like that? What's his best year?
His best year. Excuse me 1 second here.
Of course, I'm sorry. Sean, I don't know the question.
He did not win a Cy Young. His best year. Let me look through here.
So I know this thing.
His best year was 1989. He was 16-9 with a 2.57 ERA. Actually, you know what? Next 1990, 18-9 with a 2.40 ERA.
That's a hell of a year. That's a Cy Young,
Yeah,
hype year. Bet you he got some.
he finished
votes.
7 in Cy Young.
There you go. Got some votes. Good for you, Chuck. Good for you, Charles. If you don't mind, Charles Finley. I'm sure it's
He likes
Charles.
to be very proper.
He's a lefty, by the way. If I didn't say that, 6'6" on the man, 6'6", 220, big fella. Big fella from the left-hand side. From Monroe, Los Angeles. Born in 1962 on November 26th, if you guys want.
Pretty handsome looking fella, too.
Yeah? Oh, look at this. Not a bad looking guy. Sean, are you ready for third base next week?
Oh, I am ready.
I got to think of a guy to ask you about. For some reason, I had a brain fart and asked you, where do you think you're going to ride Vladimir Guerrero Jr. next week at third base? I think it's been a couple of years since he's played the position.
Yeah.
Where do you think you're going to rank Nolan Arenado? I think that's going to be a hot topic. It's going to be because it's going to be interesting.
I think it might be like 4 or 5.
There we go. It's a hot topic. There's a hot topic, though. because a lot of people haven't won these days, and I think I'm probably closer to you, but a lot of people haven't
I
won.
gotta look. Yeah.
You got Manny, you got Rafi. I don't know. Austin Riley's coming down the chute. Jose Ramirez is there. I mean, you could have him after all those guys, and I wouldn't bat. After something like that. But guys, thank you for tuning in. I hope you stay tuned. Look forward to next week's third base rankings. Questions, comments, concerns down below. If you're interested in my G Juan Bay card, sorry it's not for sale. I have 2 of them though, so the second one is. How you like that? Sean, anything to let them know?
Like and subscribe, folks, please. The more you do that, the more happy we are, the better content we'll have. We'll extend this nice 10th Inning podcast community. Also, stay tuned to our Instagram. We are posting more interesting stories, posts like we just posted for Jeff McNeil. We also post on our story. Typically, Dan does a story, so that's why they're fantastic, if anybody's wondering. Shout out to those of you who look at them and like them. Just please give us some feedback on what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, if we should, shave our heads, whatever we got to do to make you happy. We're all for the team here. We want to grow this into something bigger than just ourselves.
We love you. We'll see you next week.